play.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, good lunchtime, Hanlon. Is that about right where you are?
It is, yeah. 12:10 right now, Central Time.
12:10 Central Time, nice. I've gone a bit posh today for today's episode, so mind your P's and Q's. I've put this on LinkedIn as well, so we're really, just in case anybody out there wants to offer us a job as well. There we go.
We are hiring right now.
This is our video CV for all of us, yeah. Will, of course, has been on many times. Hanlon as well a few times too. In fact, last time Hanlon was on, it was just after Charleston, I think. We had a look back on the women's side there, right?
Yeah, that was a great chat with you and Nick back in April.
Yeah, that was the beginning of what we did, was a weekly series, and we're going to continue doing it as well, I think, pretty much for the rest of the year. WTA Weekly. Will is, sorry, not Will. That's a bad job offer there, because Will didn't even know who's going to sign up for this. Nick is no longer going to be doing WTA Weekly for a few weeks. He's having a little break after a hectic spell, and a guy called Jakob is going to be hosting that particular show. But that is for another day. Will, how are you doing?
I am good. This week there's no Wimbledon on, so I'm actually accomplishing some stuff. But I do miss it. But I'm doing great.
Yeah. Do you have? Before we went live, we were sort of talking about spells of the year. Will, is there a doubles tournament amongst the slams, at least, that you think is just a bit extra special? And is it Wimbledon?
I don't know. I don't know if I can pick one that's like extra special. I mean, for me, it's more about the time zones and the matchups. So the US Open is just easiest for me because most of the matches are in the afternoon and then into the night, my time. So it's just a lot easier to watch. Whereas the past 2 weeks, I've been waking up at 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. and there's already matches that have been completed, and they're going to go till like 2 or 3 p.m. my time. And it's just really hard to get work done when you have the match on the other screen. So, for me, I don't know if I hold one in a higher regard than another in terms of doubles.
I mean, the reason I of course, I'm from the UK, but actually across the 4 slams, I probably don't have a huge preference. But I probably would lean, maybe slightly more to the US Open and New York, just because it's a bit more of a fun tournament, in my opinion, and a bit more open, I would argue, at least from a fan's perspective. But conversely, I would say my memories of a kid growing up of some of the doubles events at Wimbledon are pretty special. Hanlon, have you got any thoughts on this, chat?
I think, even outside of the Grand Slams, I think, most people who follow doubles would probably agree that Indian Wells seems to be the biggest doubles event for whatever reason. Maybe the scheduling or the 2 out of 3 format for the men. But Indian Wells always seems to draw the biggest doubles crowd. So I think in terms of player, prestige, and just the strength of the field, I would say Indian Wells is probably the most, well-known tournament for doubles. But I think, there's something about watching doubles on the Grand Slam, like at the US Open, just wandering the outside courts and stumbling upon so many good, doubles matches with marquee players that I think is hard to beat that experience too.
Yeah, and the mixed as well at the Grand Slams. I mean, you only get that at the Grand Slams. So, to see a lot of the top singles players play from the WTA and ATP play together is really, really cool.
Will, in terms of the doubles events at Wimbledon, was there any step forward, shall we say, in terms of publicity, in terms of TV, exposure, or are we still sort of, pushing that cycle, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, I did see they showed the the mixed final on I think it was Friday. Or maybe Thursday.
I think it was Thursday, actually.
Yeah. Thursday? Yeah. So Thursday, they showed the mixed final on ESPN in the US, which is, every single restaurant. And this was around like lunchtime. So like every single restaurant and bar, if they have a TV, like they're going to have ESPN on. Like that's the major sports network. So the fact that mixed doubles was on ESPN on that Thursday was really cool to see. I'm not sure they've done that in the past. I think part of the reason is maybe were the women's singles semifinals a little bit shorter. I don't remember, but
I
for
think they
whatever
used to have
reason
the
that was
mix,
on.
I think they used to have the mix fall on like Saturday or Sunday, and it just got kind of buried behind the singles
Okay.
finals. So they bumped it up to Thursday just to give it more of a spotlight, is what I'm, imagining, what I would
Yeah.
assume.
Yeah. So that was cool to see. But other than that, I feel like it was about the same. I mean, typically you're going to get the headlines if a big name player, makes a deep run in the doubles, and it was mostly doubles specialists in this case.
Okay, let's get into what I think was probably the biggest story on the doubles side, but we'll probably find out with the next half an hour or so whether you agree with me on that one. And that was the women's doubles title going to Strycova, is that right? Strycova and Hsieh, right?
Yep.
I'm saying that. I
I
hope
think
to some.
I mean,
I'm
it
getting
sounded
close
right to
to it.
me. Yeah.
I can
No,
pronounce the people that lost to them anyway. Storm Hunter and Elise Mertens with a
yeah.
bit more comfort. And this was a bit of a comeback sort of thing, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah. I think it was. I would agree that was probably the best doubles story of the tournament. And maybe, beyond just double stories, one of the best feel good stories of Wimbledon. But I think just what an impressive comeback from, Hsieh Strycova. She's a magician out there. I watched, the entirety of the women's finals, and she was just redirecting the pace of Hunter and Mertens, and lobbing, and hitting flat balls and short balls, and just incredible hands at the net, and really setting up her partner Barbora Strycova well, just to attack at the net. But she's won now back-to-back majors, so she's 12-0 in Grand Slams this year, and she's also won Wimbledon, the women's doubles event, 3 times in a row that she's played in 2019, 2021, and 2023. So really remarkable comeback story for both of them.
And Hsieh Strycova as well.
Yeah, Hsieh Strycova, I think, just going back to her accomplishments this year, winning the Channel Slam with, 2 different partners at Roland Garros and now at Wimbledon, and winning, kind of accomplishing that three-peat at Wimbledon, like I talked about. And then what a great, farewell tour for Strycova, who's, this was her last Wimbledon, and she's going to retire, I think, after the US Open for good. So, an added bonus that she was able to come back and, win a surprise slam to add to her resume.
Will, do you think there's any chance she might change her mind?
I don't know. I was wondering the same thing. Yeah, I was looking at the WTA race to the finals, and they jumped 37 spots up to number 7. So they're in it right now. Now, if you asked Hsieh Strycova, do you want to make the WTA finals this year? She might not know what that event is. She is so quirky and funny. I don't know if you've heard the story of when she was practicing in New York. This is during the US Open with her coach. I think she was practicing with Paul McNamee, who's her coach.
Okay.
She was hitting balls and broke a string and didn't notice.
Yes, I'm aware of that story.
Have you heard this?
Yeah.
So her coach, like, she kept hitting, and her coach noticed the ball was, like, I guess flying a little bit or something. And he said, "Your string's broken." And she looked at it and was confused. And he said, "When's the last time you had it restrung?" And it was like 2 or 3 years. Like, it was something crazy. So she's so quirky and funny, and she has such a great personality. Everybody loves her. Anyways, it was amazing to watch her win Wimbledon after Roland Garros as well.
Hanlon, any more sort of broader thoughts on the women's doubles tournament as a whole?
Well, I think Hsieh's timing has been interesting, because she came back, for Roland Garros right before in Madrid, and the number 1 Czech team of Barbora Krejcikova and Katerina Siniakova they were injured, and then came back and, were rusty at Roland Garros, lost a surprising first round, and then pulled out of the doubles at Wimbledon. So Hsieh has definitely taken advantage of, the Czechs' absence, but it'd be great to see the 2 of them square off sometime this summer in New York or one of the lead up tournaments. But I think, beyond that, there were, as it relates to the Wimbledon draw, there were a lot of upsets, a lot of seeds getting bounced in the early rounds, and just some teams, having broken up recently, like Gabby Dabrowski and Luisa Stefani. It's, interesting to see different partners that they've been playing with lately. So I would say, yeah, a couple of team breakups and just early round upsets.
Hanlon, can you elaborate a bit on the Siniakova-Krejcikova situation? Because, they dominated pretty much every Grand Slam they entered for a good year or so. And yet they had that shock first round loss in Paris. They pulled out here, but Krejcikova was certainly well enough to perform in the singles for a couple of matches. And she had a pretty good build-up as well, where she made the final in Birmingham. What was the thought, or was it Siniakova then pulling the plug on that? Was it Hanlon?
I don't know. Will, do you know? One of them, I think, got injured, or maybe it was a precautionary measure.
Yeah, I'm not even sure. I didn't see much about it. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's something I should know, but that's one of the difficulties with doubles is a lot of the news doesn't become news. Like nobody talks about it. So
I do think
I'm really not
Siniakova had
sure.
one or two good singles results, not necessarily at Wimbledon itself. I'm just having a quick look at her singles.
Yeah, she did have a good grass season from what I remember.
She got to the second round, it looks like, at Wimbledon. But I remember having some good results pre-Wimbledon as well on the singles
side. Yeah, she won a tournament, I believe.
Yeah, I think she may well. Did she win? She didn't win Bad Homburg, did she? By any chance?
Yeah, maybe. I think she won that one.
Yeah, it was Bad Homburg. She won that, exactly. And then she got to the second round. So I don't know, maybe there was some, I think both were healthy, but maybe they thought, both players thought, listen, maybe we need to give this a good go in singles. And maybe once they get to they're both in the second round at Wimbledon, I think. Maybe they made the decision as late as that. But I mean, how easy is it?
Well, I think Krejcikova retired in her match, actually. That's what it was. Well, she was down like 6-3, 4-0 or something, and then I'm pretty sure she retired.
That's a pity because Krejcikova has sort of had a stop-start year, and when I say stop-start, I don't just mean in terms of fitness. I actually mean in terms of results. And unfortunately, she's had some rough draws. But yeah, I had Krejcikova down for having a stellar year on the singles side, but it hasn't quite panned out quite that way yet. But anyway, they have they've hit a bit of a something or another in terms of the doubles, but fingers crossed their health resumes, if you like, and they can tear it up in North America. Okay. Any other final things, Will, on the women's doubles side you want to highlight?
Hanlon briefly touched on all the seeds going out. I mean, there was only 2 seeds in the quarterfinals, the 3 seed, which was Hunter and Mertens, who made the final, and then the 16 seeds of Dolehide and Zheng Shui. So that was really surprising. I mean, early on, a lot of seeds dropped that, and some of them had a decent grass court season. So that's one thing I noticed. Another thing is Vondrousova actually, she won the singles, of course. She actually made the quarters and doubles and withdrew. So
actually, Will, that does bring me to a broader point.
Or third round, I'm sorry, not quarters, third round, but withdrew against Hunter and Mertens.
Okay. I mean, we saw Iga Swiatek, I think, make the French Open doubles final and the French Open singles final. I think she won the singles and lost the doubles. I'm going to say 2020, but I could be out by...
I think that's right.
Yeah, I think it was 2020 in that winter version of the Paris event. How easy do you think it is in modern tennis to do that? Is it still? Am I being a bit too negative on the women's side in particular? Where of course they're playing best of 3.
Yeah. I mean, it's easier easier on the women's side for sure, since it's best of 3 instead of 5. And it's also easier at the Grand Slams because you're playing every other day versus a lot of the Masters 1000s, at least the ones that are only 1 week. You'll have singles matches on back-to-back days, and you don't necessarily want to add doubles onto that, so you can kind of stagger them. But a lot of the Masters 1000s are moving, as you know, to 10 or 14-day tournaments. So maybe we'll see more of the quote singles players entering the doubles draws at some of those. I guess time will tell, but Yeah, I think it's achievable for sure if you're in good health, good fitness, especially on the women's side with the 2 out of 3 sets.
I mean, achievable, Hanlon. Is it advisable too? Is it? I mean, there are pros and cons. I would suggest to both. I mean, for sure, it can give you a better feel, especially maybe in the earlier rounds, and in a way, more matches means more confidence if you're playing well, right?
Yeah, I think so. We've talked to Jess Pagula about this in a press conference last summer. We asked her, specifically about balancing singles versus doubles, and for players like Goff and Pagula, whose singles results, the past few months have been probably more up and down than they had expected. I think doubles has given them both a platform to, work on different things, treat it like a practice, but with the adrenaline of a real match, but also, have that camaraderie and leave tournaments probably on a more positive note mentally than they would have, for instance, like when Coco lost early in singles at Wimbledon, she and Pagula still won a couple of rounds and, got to, I think, almost to the second week of doubles. So I think, both for morale reasons and, for practice, doubles, offers great benefits in both of those arenas.
On the men's doubles side, Will, the headline I recall was champions, I think, finally, or champions at last for Hsieh Strycova and Wesley Koolhof, winning their final in straight sets, actually. And I think a little over an hour, maybe hour and a quarter, I think it was, hour and 15 minutes, something like that. And of course, there's the story. Didn't they get to the US Open final? I think it was last year, Will, where they had a bit of a disappointing end to their run there.
Yeah, they lost to Joe Salisbury and Rajiv Ram in the US Open final, and they've been the best team probably on the ATP Tour for the last year and a half or so. They teamed up at the beginning of 2022 last year. But yeah, they couldn't really break through at the Grand Slams. They had, I think, 7 titles last year and made 10 finals. And then this year they've had a couple of titles as well, and they're back to number 1 in the race. So it was cool to see them kind of break through and get their first Grand Slam together. And I actually spoke yesterday with Wesley's coach, Rob Morgan, on the podcast, and I asked him that. I asked him, what was the difference for Wimbledon this year, since they've played 6 Grand Slams together. They've been the best team in the world the past 18 months, but they haven't been able to break through. And I was kind of expecting him to say, like, it was just a matter of time. They've obviously won a lot of tournaments. We were doing all the right things. But he actually said that he sat down with them at the beginning of the year, and they kind of reviewed last year and said, okay, we've done great. We finished the year in number 1. We won 7 titles, but we need to make a change because, we didn't win the Grand Slam, and that's what we want to win. Like, we want to win a major. So I thought he was going to say they worked on some tactical things or some strategic things, but he said communication was the difference this year. He said their communication has gotten even deeper, and he talked about it on the court, off the court, between matches, before matches. So it was interesting hearing him talk about that, how they've just gotten to know each other so well, and been able to kind of lift each other up when one person's feeling a little down or feeling a little off. So it was really cool to see them win their well-deserved first major.
How do they sort of, it seems fairly random, but I'm sure it's not. How do these players come together, such as Skupski and Koolhof? Maybe, Will, this story, or maybe Hanlon's sort of nodding a bit there. And maybe Hanlon knows how these two came about as a pair.
I don't know these two specifically. I feel like it can, doubles partnerships, at least from what we understand, can take different forms. I know some people will just, DM each other on Instagram, but then other times, like, coaches will set them up and try and, find partners who might complement their skill sets or who they get along with off the court. So, I mean, it's probably a mix. Some people just prefer to play with their friends. I know we spoke with Danielle Collins back in Charleston this April, and she, specifically mentioned just enjoying doubles for more of a mental health relief and mental, social benefits of playing with friends. So I think it happens, for a number of in a number of different ways. But Will, I don't know if you have anything else to add there.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to think that there was some kind of like method to this behind the scenes going on, and there's really not. They'll text each other or direct message each other on whatever social platform it is. I will say it changes as your ranking improves. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're ranked lower, you may not be able to get into all the tournaments. So you might have to ask a higher ranked singles player to play with you at a Masters 1000, for example. But once you get into that top 30, top 20 in the doubles rankings, then that's when you can kind of choose a partner and stick with them for a full year. It becomes a little bit easier because at that point, y'all can get into all of the big tournaments. So a lot of players I find will use a lot of different partners until they get their ranking up. But then I've also noticed some players, some teammates stay together even at the lower level tournaments. And then they'll kind of work their way up as a team until they get their ranking up together. So yeah, it just depends on kind of the person and the preferences of them.
Yeah, I mean, from just an amateur's perspective, playing with friends makes sense. I think even just the pressure and the responsibility you might feel with playing with somebody you don't know, whether they're significantly better or the other way around. I mean, you also hope that there's a nice balance. That you don't want to have the one person that's producing all the shots and saving the team. I mean, can you think of an example, Will, where there has been a doubles team that's done very well, got to a final, maybe won a tournament, and it is one player carrying the other?
At the majors, probably not. Maybe it's some of the lower level tournaments if there's like a player ranked really high and they typically maybe don't play a 125 or a 250 and they're playing with a friend or something.
I mean, historically, Will, you did have some, I don't want to say, yeah, I mean, kind of lopsided in the stature of the singles game, such as I think it's fair to say that Mary Carrillo's standing in the singles game wasn't quite as high as John McEnroe's. Pam Shriver's wasn't quite as high as Martina Navratilova's. That doesn't mean that they weren't 50-50 in their double success, because Pam Shriver, possibly one of the best women's doubles players of all time, probably doesn't fall into that category in the singles, but there's different dynamics at play, right?
Yeah, and I think at the pro level, it's just like harder to notice the differences because the margins are so much smaller.
Yeah.
So if I go down to my local club, like I'll be able to tell within 5 minutes, like, oh, that player is much better than their partner. They're going to cover all the balls in the middle. Whereas at the pro level, it's like the difference between number 1 in the world and number 70 or 100 in the world. It's not that much. Like it's very, very small margins. Even though the score might be 6-2, 6-3 in a singles match. One that does come to mind, I guess, is Kyrgios Kokkinakis at the Australian Open last year. I mean, Kokkinakis is a great player, but Kyrgios is just he's better. So maybe Kyrgios kind of carried him at times in the matches I saw. I remember there was definitely some return games where they'd win all these Kyrgios return points, and Kokkinakis couldn't find a return, and then eventually he finds one, and Kyrgios kind of would lift him up in points like that. So that's one that comes to mind. But
Jack Sock and John Isner is another one, or does Isner serve get him? Is that him carrying up his end of the doubles bargain?
Yeah, that's a good point. No, I mean I feel like Isner actually improved at doubles last year. So when he won the Sunshine Double,
was Jack Sock one of the doubles players against Rafa and Roger last year at the Laver Cup? It was Jack Sock, was it? And
I think it was Sock and Tiafoe.
Sock and Tiafoe, yeah. Because Sock was just the best player on the court.
Yeah. So I think, Hanlon, back to your point, like, no, I think Isner was a really good doubles player last year. I mean, he did great with Sock, and they won Indian Wells, but then he teamed up with Hurkacz and won Miami. Then he teamed up with Schwartzman and made the final in Rome. So
Miami won. Hurkacz won Miami doubles, did he?
Yeah, with Isner.
2022 with Isner.
I think he's got the singles and the doubles then now as in his trophy cabinet.
So anyways, yeah, I think Isner kind of proved that he is a fantastic doubles player as well. I know he's been struggling in singles this year.
I was surprised they lost first round at Wimbledon too. They did play a good team though.
Isner hasn't played a lot in the last sort of 12 months. I don't think he's sort of maybe just still easing his way back onto the circuit. What about the players that they beat, by the way, in the final? Marcel Granollers and Horacio Zeballos. I mean, what's their sort of doubles pedigree?
They've been around for a while, and I haven't gotten to watch a ton of their matches. Will has probably watched them more than me, but I do know neither of them has. They've won a bunch of big titles together and have gone deep in so many slams, but they haven't won a Grand Slam before. And this was actually their third. I think they're 0-3 in finals as a pairing, and then Marcel Granoller, I'm sure I butchered his last name. He's 0-5 in Grand Slam finals as well. So they've had tough luck in the final stages of the majors, but they've been, a solid doubles team the last several years, both together and throughout their careers with multiple different partners, I think.
Yeah. They're a team that stayed together for a while. I don't know when they first teamed up, but it seems like they've been together maybe 5 years or so. And you don't always see that. I mean, we just saw Mektic and Pavic play their last tournament together. But Granollers and Zeballos did make the final at Wimbledon. I think it was 2021. So 2 years ago. But they're a really good lefty-righty combo who always has a chance to make a deep run on really any surface when they're healthy.
By the way, a slight offshoot. I did see Skupski, by the way, say something about losing or not doing well in the mixed doubles helped him towards the men's victory. I don't know if you heard that one.
I didn't, but that is a good point. And also, I feel like that was one of the more under the radar, big upsets in Wimbledon that him and Skupski and Desiree Krawczyk lost first round when they've won the mixed event. I believe twice at Wimbledon together. But I mean, that makes sense, I guess, if he had, more of his schedule cleared up after, going out in the first round of the mix just to focus solely on men's doubles and, take one match at a time. So, I was really excited to see them solidify the number one spot and get their first major together.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other final words, Will, on the men's doubles?
No, I mentioned Mektic, Pavic. They had a great run for a couple of years. The only other thing is Ram and Salisbury lost first round. So they teamed up together for the first time in 2019, and they've made the year in finals every year. And they are 19th right now. They've had a rough year. So it will be interesting to see how they do this fall. Last fall, they did really well winning the US Open, and I think they won. It was either Cincinnati or in Canada. I think they won Cincinnati. So they won a Masters 1000 and a Grand Slam in the fall. So it'll be interesting to see if they can kind of claw their way back up into the race.
Yeah, lots of points to defend.
And of course, we had some success for Pavic in the mixed doubles alongside the Ukrainian Lyudmila Kichenok. Hopefully, I'm closer on the surname than the first name. So there was some success there. Tell me about their run and their success, Will.
Yeah, so Pavic has, I think, a couple of Grand Slams in mixed, right, Hanlon? 2 or 3 at this point.
I think so.
And like I said, that was aired on ESPN, so I got to watch a good bit of it. And I think it went to a third set. They lost the second in a tiebreaker. And yeah, the mixed is great. I mean, it's a ton of fun to watch because you'll see it's so much different because you'll see the guys like crowd over to the girls' side a lot of the times. Like Pavic was doing it a bunch in the second set. Okay. Even on easy balls that like Kichenok could, had an easy short forehand, and it's like she's a top tennis player in the world. Like she can make this and do something with it. And since he's a lefty, he would like crowd over to her side and try to take it, and he'd miss it. and get upset with himself. And you could see he's like playing it through in his mind, like, I know I was being a ball hog there, but I should be able to make that shot. And so it's interesting watching the dynamic there in mixed. But it was cool to see them win. Kichenok, being from Ukraine, had some nice words afterwards. And the crowd gave her a huge standing ovation. So yeah, it was a lot of fun to watch and good to see on ESPN as well.
Any thoughts, Hanlon?
There are a lot of, I was excited to see both of these or this team win, especially because I think Kichenok and Ostapenko lost early. They were one of the top seeds in the women's draw that went out fairly early. So good on her to get the mixed title. But there were some other really fun teams in the draw that didn't go as far as I was hoping. Taylor Townsend and Jamie Murray was one team, double lefty team that, UK, US team that I think a lot of people were excited about. And then two teams who, we all know are couples, Stefanos Tsitsipas and Paula Badosa, obviously, and then Alex de Minaur and Katie Boulter. Both of them, Tsitsidosa, I think, withdrew altogether, and then Boulter and de Minaur won a round, I think, and then lost in the second round. So it was cool to see personal relationships blend into the mixed doubles draw.
Yeah. Anything to elaborate on in Tsitsidosa or de Minaur and Katie Boulter, Will?
No, I don't think so. The Tsitsidosa thing, I don't really have interest in talking about.
No, but actually, Tsitsipas is a doubles player. I mean, on the men's side,
he played with his brother. Yeah. He plays with his brother. They play. I don't know if they lost first round or second round, but they typically play the Grand Slams together. And a lot of people, it comes up, it seems like every major, Tsitsipas will be winning a couple of rounds in the singles, and everybody will say, "Oh, is he going to withdraw?" And he never does. To his credit, I mean, he always plays with his brother. He's trying to help his brother make it in doubles, it seems like. So, I mean,
cool Tsitsipas, by the way, I wouldn't necessarily say he's a great doubles player, but I think he's had some reasonable success at the beginning of the year with Maria Sakkari sometimes in mixed doubles, at least. So, by the way, on a slight offshoot, I saw an exchange on Instagram today, and I wish I could remember it, between Taylor Townsend and Leylah Fernandez. There was some kind of funny exchange where I don't know whether it was like that doubles partner you have who doesn't pull their weight, and then one of them responded by saying, "You don't mean me, do you?" And then like, "No, lol," or something like that. Between the pairs. So I'll try and fish that out if I can, but I can't find it off the top of my head, at least. What about Leylah Fernandez, Taylor Townsend? How did they get on? Did they play in the mixed in the women's doubles?
Yeah, they lost to Stefani and Garcia, I believe, in the third round. Yeah, so they were a team that was actually a matchup that I thought. No, that was second round. Okay. Yeah, it was. That section of the draw was very tough because Hsieh and Strycova were in that section as well. And I thought the team that won that matchup might come out of that quarter, but it turned out Hsieh and Strycova won. But Fernandez and Townsend are still fifth in the race to the year-end final, so they told us in Charleston that is one of their goals to make the year-end final. So they're on track to do that, despite that result.
Have you got any thoughts on Taylor Townsend and Leylah Fernandez, Hanlon?
Yeah, I think they're a really fun team to watch, and could be potentially really great for doubles if they keep playing together long term. Both of them are very, I think have very strong fan bases, big personalities, flashy games. They're both left-handed.
Yeah, I remember speaking to Will about that before. The two left-handed dynamic, Hanlon. What are your thoughts on that? Then is that a recipe for success sometimes in doubles or not?
I think it certainly can be. I know they both prefer their forehands, and their game styles.
Hanlon, would it be beneficial though if one of them preferred the backhand and one preferred the forehand? Is there something, two lefties may be fine, but if there was a dynamic where one was strong on the backhand side?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can make that argument. I know a lot of people prefer to have their forehands in the middle if you're playing, with a righty and a lefty. But I don't know, Will, what do you think about the double lefty dynamics?
I mean, I think it's great because it's something you almost never see. So when your opponents come up against it, they're just not used to it. They're gonna make, we all have these tendencies in doubles that work and that we build around playing against two right-handed opponents. So like when I play two lefties or a lefty, I'll lob them over the wrong side once or twice before I get it right, and they'll hit an overhead back in my face. So I think that has to happen at the pro level. Maybe it's not the lob, but maybe it's hitting a ground stroke or a passing shot to a certain location. But as far as the forehand backhand thing goes, Townsend plays the deuce court, if I remember correctly, and she has a solid backhand. So if they take her out wide in the deuce court, she hits a very heavy ball and can kind of hang with any righty forehand cross court. And she likes to get to the net a lot anyways. So she doesn't spend too much time back there in a lot of cases. So I feel like it's an advantage for them for sure. If nothing else, then just for the reason that it's very uncommon.
Hanlon, any other sort of final thoughts on the doubles tournament? Are there any stories or matches that we've not mentioned that deserve to be highlighted?
Well, this is one kind of random fact. I was looking at the Legends Invitational draw, and Kim Clijsters and Martina Hingis went 4-0 in the Women's Invitational without dropping a set. So, judging how successful both of them were, in the prime of their careers in doubles, winning multiple majors and getting to the number one ranking, I would have loved to have seen them just thrown into the women's doubles draw and see how far they can go, because they both clearly can still play great doubles. So I would have liked to think that they could have won a few rounds, if not more.
I mean, Kim did have a flirt, I think, about it was just on the maybe eve of COVID, I think, where she said she might come back for a singles run, and then it didn't really sort of happen. I think a few tournaments may have well have got cancelled, and then she may have played one singles tournament, then it just didn't really happen at all. I'm not sure about Martina's age. She's probably early 40s, I would guess. Mind you, there are one or two players that are showing that certainly in the doubles side, they can still play very good level of doubles in their 40s, as we see with a certain young man from India.
Yeah, Bopana made the semifinals, actually.
What's his ranking now?
I think he's up to like 6 or something.
Yeah,
7.
Yeah. Ebden got to number 10 to his partner Matt Ebden, so they're both top 10 doubles players now, which is great.
Yeah. Will, any other matches, for example, or stories that we've missed, do you think, from Wimbledon?
Yeah, overall, I mean, the women's draw was kind of strange with all the seeds going out early. So I didn't mention this, but this kind of blew my mind. So Storm Hunter and Elise Mertens made the final, and they had lost 9 total games, and they were already in the finals. So their closest match was 6-2, 6-1 going into the finals.
But did that count against them to some extent in that final, do you think?
I mean, but probably because they had a relatively weak draw. I mean, I thought their semi would have been closer against Dolhide and Shui. I mean, that's not a particularly easy matchup. That's two really good doubles players. But anyways, yeah, I mean, they didn't have any real tests going into the finals. So that could have counted against them for sure. Another thing is I tweeted this out in the middle of the tournament. Coco lost, I think, first round in singles, right? And then Jessica was still in. But it seemed like just a great opportunity again for them to win their first major together. They've been probably the second best team over the last couple of years. And they've got several Masters 1000s. And they've made the year-end finals last year. I think they're first or second this year in the race. And then they lost 3-3 to who was it? Zvonareva and Siegmund in the third round. And yeah, I don't know, that result kind of surprised me. So
Siegmund said to me earlier this year, I spoke to her in Madrid, and she said that I don't know, the vibe I got that she was thinking of winding down her singles career and giving it her best shot in doubles to maybe pick up a title or two. She wouldn't say that. She wouldn't say that that she wasn't, that she was, winding down the singles career. But that was the vibe I got. And I saw her pull out in Paris of the qualifiers for the singles, but play the doubles. So I thought, okay, that is supporting what I think. I'm not saying that she's going to be winning Grand Slams, because I don't think she's got that kind of pedigree, not yet anyway, even if she's in her mid-30s.
Well, they won the US Open.
Oh, okay. She's won a US Open. Okay.
So 2020. She in
2020 US Open.
So there we go. Maybe she thinks that there's another Grand Slam for her in doubles, and probably singles that ship has sailed.
Yeah. So they won the US Open 2020, and then I think they won Miami last year, or maybe the year before. So they're a good team, and Siegman is, if she does that and focuses on doubles, I think she'll be a top 10 player. She is a very, very good player at the net. She moves really well, and has a very high doubles IQ. So I think that could work for her to extend her career for sure.
She's not a huge fan of grass as a surface, so maybe she will maybe have more success in North America. Talking of North America, Hanlon, we're now in it's over to you now. We're passing the baton away from Europe, at least until the indoor season, and sort of the end of the year. What are you excited about in the next sort of few weeks, Hanlon?
I'm just excited, to get tennis back stateside and steal it back from you guys. It'll be fun. I know Newport kicked off this week in Rhode Island. That's always an event that I've wanted to go to, at the International Tennis Hall of Fame on the grass. But I'll be going to Atlanta next weekend for the ATP 250. And then, that's always a good warm up to DC, Cincinnati, Montreal, the Canada swing. So, and then Will and I will be going to the US Open as well. So I'm really excited to get back there. But I think, big picture, storylines, even outside of doubles, it'll be awesome to see, if we can get a rematch of Djokovic and Alcaraz at the US Open again, to see how, Iga and the development of the WTA's big three, quote unquote, more or less, with some of the, outside intruders, how that continues to pan out. So I think, singles and doubles, there'll be a lot of great stories headed into the US hard court swing.
What's Carlos in terms of doubles, Will? I mean, I saw some suggestions that him and Rafa may well pair up for the French Open next year. There's a lot of tennis to be played between now and then. And I'm probably thinking most in terms of Rafa's health, more than Carlos's. But I mean, that of course would be a dream pairing, and maybe Rafa wouldn't have to do quite as much running as he would on a singles court. When you went woof, I don't know whether you were going woof because what a combo that could be, or just, we'll see how Rafa is in terms of his health.
What a combo that could be, and how fun would that be to watch? I mean, Alcaraz could figure out the doubles court. He's got zero weaknesses. He has all the tools. Yeah, he could figure it out.
And both are pretty good at the net. I mean, this is an area of the game that for 10 or 15 years, neglected is too strong a word. But the more, particularly with Roger and Novak sort of dominating from the back of the court. I know Roger at the beginning of his career was more keen to come to the net, but towards the end of his career was pretty much just staying at the back. But Carlos and Rafa as well, if Rafa's half fit or even closer to full fitness, their touch at the net is pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think they'd do great together, and obviously that would get a ton of huge storylines for doubles, which I would love to see as well. So,
I mean,
I've not heard that, but
I think it was sort of speculation, and then it becomes news. And okay. I mean, they're both Spanish, of course, and so assuming if Rafa is close, I actually think that Rafa might, if Rafa's health is just nowhere near what it needs to be for
singles,
top singles competition. Olympics would be, this is not disrespecting Olympics. I think it's a separate argument to sort of start saying whether tennis should be there. And I'm more than happy to have that for another day. But, doubles at the Olympics would be a sort of in the direction of a Laver Cup sort of exit like Roger had. I don't think it's too disrespectful either, because it would be in doubles. I think it would be a lot of fun and actually would bring a lot of attention, both to tennis at the Olympics, but also doubles in particular. Right, Hannon?
Yeah, I would agree. I think it'd be a fitting way for Rafa to go out on clay, especially with the Olympics being in Paris next year. And I will say, of the big three or big four, I think Nadal has had the most double success in his career. Obviously, he won the gold medal at the, I don't remember what year.
2008, maybe?
Was it 08?
I know he won the singles that year as well, but that was alongside Lopez, I think.
I think they might have won in 16 because Federer and Stan won in 08. So, I mean, it's interesting to see a lot of their the big threes doubles careers, because Federer had a lot of double success early on in his career, and then, you know, stopped playing once he got to the top. And then Nadal has kind of played sporadically with Mark Lopez and had some good success over the years too. So it'd be great to see Nadal and Alcaraz, you know, go out with some doubles on the clay next year.
Talking of doubles and the big three, of course, Federer and his future wife played together at the Hopman Cup 20 odd years ago, and that's sort of where their romance kind of began. We've got the Hopman Cup happening this week, right, Will?
Yeah, I believe so.
I saw Donna Vekic and Borna Coric in an Instagram post, I think, as well. Honestly, I don't spend that much time on Instagram, but I've seen a couple of posts today. They were not playing; they were just sort of hanging out. But I think the Hopman Cup, obviously being a nation thing, there may well be some doubles action there. I don't really know. I'm guessing there will be, given that it's been a part of the tournament in the past. It's a strange time of the year to be squeezing in this, if it wants to be a prestigious tournament, but that's tennis calendars for you. But yeah, I mean, do you have any memories of Hopman Cups from years gone by, Will?
Hamlin might have watched it more than I have.
I remember, I think Serena and Frances Tiafoe played together for the U.S. one year, if I remember correctly. That was a really exciting combo. And then I remember Angelique Kerber and Alexander Zverev, I think, playing together for Germany, and Kerber like giving him some for classic like eye rolls, or it was funny just to see like the dynamic between different, you know, female players of the same country and male players, and like age differences and personalities. So it's always fun to see how the country pairings work out. And I think Federer and Bencic, from what I remember, have had a lot of success for Team Switzerland over the years too. So yeah, the mixed events are always, you know, where tennis, I think, shines the most.
Certain players, and I think Bencic falls into this category, she does sort of seem to thrive in the team environment, if you like, more than the singles environment anyway. Just one more thing before I do let you both ride off into the sunset is talking about nationalities over the years. I mean, it seems to be about 50-50 where you might get, you know, Kokkinakis and Kyrgios, of course, playing together for Australia. I mean, in Grand Slams, etc. You know, Navratilova, we touched on earlier, of course, becoming an adopted American and playing alongside Pam Shriver, McEnroe, and so on and so forth that we just highlighted. But there's also a lot of pairs now that are coming from very different parts of the world. Is there a pattern where we would say, you know what, it tends to be where there's the same native tongue and same nationality is any more successful, or is it now such a small world that it's really about friendships and dynamics, Will?
Yeah, I mean, I think because the world is so global that it is more about just friendship dynamics. But I've got the race pulled up here, so let's look at like the top 12. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of the top 12 on the men's side are the same nationality in the year-end race. And then on the women's side, 1, 2, just 2. So yeah, so not a ton. I mean, that's 6 out of 24. I think I did that right.
I mean, everybody's level of English now as well is to the extent that it may not have been the case 20 or 30 years ago, but I think there's barely I've never heard a player on tour that really can't do. I mean, I know people criticize certain players' level of English, but these are people that have no idea what it's like to learn a language. Trust me, because I don't know anyone on the tour that can't speak English. I mean, there might be someone, but I haven't met them.
Yeah. I think part of it also has to do with just how many months they're on the road together, you know? So like somebody who knows more about tennis history would be able to speak to this better than me, but like a while back, right, people like didn't always go to every single tournament. But now you're on the road 11 months out of the year, and you know, these are the people you're hanging out with regardless of like what country you're from. So you're going to team up with the people you connect with or you feel like give you the best chance to win, regardless of the country. And especially since like the prize money in doubles is so low, like, you have to do what's in your best financial interest.
Historically, has there been, Hanlon, what's the biggest fallout between a doubles pairing? You know, have we seen a divorce basically occur on court? Have we seen a pair fight at all? Or, I mean, in most other sports, we probably would. I mean, I can tell you examples in the Premier League where teammates have fought actually on the pitch, and it's really funny, by the way. But I don't recall one of that level in tennis.
I'm trying to think of, like, Will and I kind of always joke about this. Like, it would be funny to start a website or something that's like just, exposing like doubles team or talking about doubles teams, like drama and breakups and stuff. Cause that would just go crazy on Twitter. But I can't think of a very public, like, bad breakup incident. You kind of hear rumblings from other journalists or other people like on Twitter that you talk to that you might see like small things about here and there. But, I can't really think of like a big public, juicy doubles partnership breakup. But
even like a couple of fisticuffs,
I would like to see it more. I know the Bryan brothers would openly talk about how they used to, but they're brothers. They used to fight all the time and beat up on each other.
Okay.
But going back to your point about the nationality in doubles partnerships, I think the next year will be really interesting. With 2024 being an Olympic year, you often see doubles partnerships sort of split up or reform to, try and play with someone from your home country to make, a strong Olympics bid. So I think we could very well see that with a lot of players who might, want to increase their odds of making their country's Olympic team by, teaming up with a fellow countryman or countrywoman.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, so I mean, it'll be basically this time next year, I think. I mean, it feels like the last Olympics has barely just finished, but we've got another one already occurring. Okay, guys, listen, wonderful. Thanks for your time. It's been almost an hour. We've been chatting all things doubles and even a potential fisticuffs. Well, we're here for it. If a pair is if one partner right now is watching this, on the court, and they are thinking about maybe just giving a light slap, let's say, to their doubles partner. I'm not encouraging violence of a huge, but it would be entertaining. And equally, if there's a doubles partnership that is romantically involved and they wish to have a public separation, I'm all for that as well.
Whatever brings the eyeballs to the doubles court is good with me.
Absolutely. And fingers crossed we have a really exciting North American swing, and who knows, friend of the show, Laura Siegmund. She doesn't know that she's a friend of the show. I just happened to interview her once, and now she's called us. She can bring it to New York like she did a few years ago. Guys, big thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, John.
And
it was fun as always.
We'll be probably touching base again after New York, I hope. But if things work out, we may even cross paths in the Big Apple too.
Sounds good.
So. See ya.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.